Rupesh, start recording. Yes, sir. He started recording, sir.
Thank you. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. My name is Jaya Kishore Esanakula. If somebody's new in the audience, I would recommend that you read through the initial couple of slides to get an overview on what I stand for, the philosophies in life in general and in career. They should really say June, wasn't it? Not May anymore. Still living in May, I guess. Anyways, we're on June 3rd. Today is June 3rd here. So let's get going here. Who am I? I am one of you. Went through the college, did my BTech in CSIT from Vidyaniketan, Sri Vidyaniketan Engineering College. And I'm from Tirupati. I've done my schooling from SU Campus School. You could see that school's a big campus. It's a huge campus. When you're going through Balaji Colony, you would see that there. And I've done, my +1, +2 from Rayalaseema Junior College. And in 2003, came to US, did my master's in computer science and advanced computer networking, with the second specialization in native XML databases. And the certifications that I'm sharing with you here that are relevant to the topic, I have certifications in healthcare and AI and ML. From from a career standpoint, I went through security, industry, health insurance, pharmacy, transportation, logistics, automotive finance, healthcare and hospitals, healthcare, and right now I'm working in healthcare and hybrid data management services domain. Hobbies, please read through them, have them, especially during these downtimes. It's really, really important to have hobbies that include your family members as well. Don't isolate yourself by saying my hobby is watching TV or my hobby is reading a book is pretty good, but that doesn't quite include the family as well. So try to have hobbies that includes family, going for a hike or a walk or biking together with family. Have things that includes your family. Don't isolate yourself. It's very easy to isolate yourself at this, especially the last 2.5 months during the pandemic, and be part of the family, help out, and have hobbies, good hobbies, healthy hobbies that include family members. Why should we have enterprise architecture, right? Today's topic is something that helps you understand how a strategic objective can be, is translated into a revenue generating value streams. Revenue generating value streams, when you put those together, you get a product. So I've used terminology that might be a little confusing for you. I want you to focus on this video and kind of watch why enterprise architecture is important. And shortly after, we'd look at what are the different aspects of enterprise architecture and how we could use those to our advantage to translate a strategic objective into a revenue generating value streams. To simplify all of this jargon, right, what it means is that you have an objective. Let's take a step back. Even better, you have a goal. Your goal is to become the CIO of Google, right? In the next 15 years, you're setting yourself a goal. I want to be the CIO of Google. How do you do that? Well, you have to break up the goal into individual objectives. So your first objective is, okay, after I'm done with my bachelor's from Sri Vidyaniketan, I want to go do my master's in such and such, university. It could be an IIT, right? Or it could be a IIM, or it could be some university in US or Australia or London, wherever your heart takes you as far as your research work goes. Go do that. And after that, you might set an objective, say, okay, I'd like to go do a PhD and get specialized in this particular topic. Set yourself an objective to do that. And then after that, you might say, okay, once I'm done with my PhD, I'm going to venture into the research and development realm on the technology side, join Intel, Cisco, or NVIDIA, or NetApp, or Google themselves, or Amazon, set that objective. Now, just like individuals have goals and objectives, and they set those goals and objectives and work towards them, organizations do that too. How do organizations do this? Because when you think of an organization, it's hard to wrap your head around what does an organization mean, right? What does an organization do? How do you get an objective realized by having a group of people working on a single goal or a single objective and working in a uh, harmony, unison, and achieve that objective, and eventually make that objective worthwhile to sell it to others, maybe start making some money, right? Eventually, all organizations, or I should say most organizations, are value driven or profit driven. If an organization is not profit driven, then you might think that it's a charity organization. Even charities need certain amount of money to be alive, to be doing what they're doing, right? Like right now during the pandemic, our state and central governments are asking for money to do the work that they're doing. They don't have enough funding. They don't have enough money. The reason for that is because it's important to have revenue generating value streams. A value stream is nothing but a set of actions that individuals do. At the end, you get some revenue generated. Okay, before we get into the nitty gritty of individual aspects of what an organization is and how it's broken up and how you translate an objective into a revenue generating value stream, I want you to watch this video real quick. And I want you to pay attention why enterprise architecture is important. If you don't have enterprise architecture, what happens? And if you do have enterprise architecture, how would you tell? Okay, adjust your headsets to a volume level that's appropriate for you. And here we go. All right. So any questions on the video that we just watched? Were you able to hear the audio fine on the video? Was the audio audible?
Sir, actually, the audio was very feeble, sir, very low.
Oh, I see. See, I think the audio has to be adjusted on your end or the listener's end. However, the good thing is I actually put the link up top right here, so you could click on that link when you get the slide deck and listen to that at your own leisure.
Students note the point regarding
Yep.
the videos. What's okay, sir?
Yep. All right. Good. Thank you, Hari. And the good news is that this is something that we watched already a couple of times during the 2 sessions that we had on enterprise architecture, and you already have the slide deck. You have this link with you already. I just replayed it to refresh your memory before we jumped into the nitty-gritty details. All right. Um, we during the last 2 sessions, we've learned that enterprise architecture constitutes of. I'm not going to read every single part of the enterprise architecture here, but I'm going to read the first top 5: data architecture, application architecture, technology infrastructure architecture, business architecture, and then integration, services, security, and facilities. Now, we covered all of these in somewhat brief, descriptive fashion. In this particular session, we're going to dig into the business architecture. So let's assume that we have an organization, fictitious organization, and the organization has a good set of architects performing or individuals performing functions uh, that that would lend their way in creating artifacts for each of these individual perspectives of an organization. So there are data architecture artifacts like data flow diagrams, entity relationship diagrams, and such. And let's say that there's a set of individuals performing the functions of an application architect, and you have application architecture diagrams that show the different components of an application, how they're interdependent, how the one application component relies upon the other, what's the relationship between them, and where are they located? Are they internal, external, in the DMZ or in the cloud, and such. And you also have a technology infrastructure architecture artifacts. These are your server topology, network topology, and such. And they could be on premises or in the cloud, right? Business architecture, we're going to jump into that in detail, a lot more detail. So let's skip that for a second. Integration architecture. This helps you understand how various applications and systems are integrated within the enterprise. How are they integrated? Are they real-time integrated, or are they batch-based integrated? If they're real-time integrated, are they using standard web services? Are they using an EDI fashion, like for example, HL7 messages or transportation logistics, EDI messages? Or is that an Xtrl kind of message or a Edifact type of message that they're using to integrate with each other? Well, with respect to integration, I do have to also, I want to speak about end user integration. Nowadays, there are certain applications that I'm seeing here where the end user UX, at the user experience level, the applications are integrated with each other. For example, one application might be embedded into the other. In this case, we're looking at a PowerPoint presentation, and there's a URL here, a link. If you click on that, it does a certain thing. So in a way, there is um, a link that's embedded into this application. So imagine you have a web application that embeds a link to another application. That when you click on it, it launches the other application. To give an example, in a healthcare domain, imagine a doctor is sitting right next to the patient, and the doctor is looking through the patient's chart, nothing but a paper on a clipboard in general, right? Except that when you think about health information systems or health information technology systems like electronic health record systems, a chart is basically that, a screen or multiple screens or set of screens of information about the patient, about their current condition, their symptoms, any diagnosis, lab test results, orders, images that have been captured within the EHR. That particular EHR system might have an embedded link. When the doctor clicks on that embedded link, it might launch another second application. The second application could be the ultraviolet, it could be ultrasound image or an ultrasound video of a particular part of the body that shows either a video or an image of a hand or any part of any type of modality. So when you think about integration architecture, don't just think about web services, EDI, and batch and such. Also think about UX level, end user UX level integration. We talked about services catalog and SLA. We'll set this aside for this session. We talked about security architecture, how important it is. It's very important to understand how your end user's identity is stored, where is it stored, how they're authenticated, how they're authorized. How can you perform audits on the access control or the access that's given to the users? And how is the DNS resolved? That's very important. And who do you trust when it comes to resolving your DNS to the IP? So there's a lot more detail to the security architecture that we're not going to jump into in this session, because we covered that in the previous sessions. And there are, if you go to the security architecture slide on the enterprise architecture session, you would see a bunch of resources or URLs or links to learn more. Facilities architecture, we covered this in detail and during the last session. It actually speaks about how buildings are laid out. There are several different perspectives to buildings. There's an electricity architecture view, there is a plumbing view, there is a security view, there is safe evacuation view, and there is your cubicles view, and there's a data connectivity view, how the network and data connections are laid out. And there's an electric outlet view. So it's several different views that show how a building is put together, how are different users, what are different facilities available to the users within a building. So that's another architecture view. So we also talked about the fact that enterprise architecture basically has a lot of things in common between the different pillars of enterprise architecture we saw here. The commonalities, each of these architecture domains have their own set of principles, standards, patterns, guidelines, and not everybody follow the principles or policies put together by the CIO or CEO. So there are exceptions and technical debt, and they have to be managed and handled. Nobody's perfect. Now, I really want to jump into the business architecture for this conversation, okay? For today's conversation. Business architecture is further divided up into business capability mapping, organization mapping, value mapping. We're going to dig into each and every single one of them. So for now, just understand that there are different views or different ways of looking at the business architecture. So value mapping, business process mapping, product mapping, stakeholder mapping, strategy mapping, initiative mapping. What are all of these, right? Business architecture in general helps you understand what an organization does. What an organization does in a broad stroke can be classified as, that's the business capability of an organization, right? And the organization could be spread across the globe. We might think, okay, where in the organization are these happening? And you need to have a map of that. So, for example, we have in our college is divided up into different parts of the campus. And on one side of the campus, you have the engineering college capability. On the other side of the college, you have the school capability. You also have the degree college capability, and so on and so forth. So those are the capabilities. And when you create a mapping or a diagram that actually shows where those capabilities exist in the organization, that becomes your organization capability. Organization mapping. If you think about bigger organizations like Amazons and Googles and our organizations like that, then they have a lot more reason to make sure that they understand how their organization is spread out. They could have certain marketing and sales functions, certain places, and they could have HR functions, human resources that is, and they could have an accounts receivables function, and accounts payable and general ledger functions. These are standard functions that most organizations ought to have. And where are they spread out, right? You really don't want to have duplication of human resources function. You could be a global organization. However, you could have a centralized HR function, assuming you have the ability to hire people that can speak different languages. So if you're Google and if you're based in US, more than likely, if your HR can speak English, you're okay. However, if you're based in the Middle East somewhere where English isn't widely spread, then you might have to have somebody who can speak the local language. So you might have to have certain capabilities of the HR spread out in your organization in certain parts of the geography because of the language limitations or other limitations that might apply. Some could be regulatory limitations as well. Next one is value mapping. This is the one that we're going to jump into today. Value mapping is constitutes of mapping your business processes to value stages and value stages to value streams, and value streams generate your revenue. And if you take a bunch of value streams and tie them together, that becomes a product. For example, an iPhone is a product, and it has a bunch of functions, a bunch of capabilities it can do. And each of those are value generating streams for Apple or for you. It depends on how you look at the product. One key thing that I would like to drive here is that a value stage, well, let me pause there. We'll dig into that when we get to the value mapping screen. Next is the business process mapping. You need to have a clear understanding on where in the organization are the business processes happening, and which capabilities are the business processes leveraging to be a business process. Right. Next one is product mapping. You need to understand which value streams come together and become a product. Then you need to know stakeholder mapping. Stakeholders are individuals who participate in a value stream. Or in other words, if you have a business process in an enterprise, that business process need to have somebody who triggers the business process and somebody who participates in the middle, somebody gets benefited at the end. So imagine in a very simple business process, a call center business process where a customer calls in. In this case, the stakeholder is a customer triggering or initiating the call. They would call in, they're calling about an order that they already placed, they're concerned that the order hasn't shipped, and they're asking a question. So they would initiate the call. Your call center resources would leverage certain IT assets at their disposal, like order management systems and such are capabilities. Order management system is a capability. The call center would leverage order management capability and check the status of the order and understand where the order is and share that information with the customer on the phone. So that's a very simple business process, and you need to know what other business processes are there in the organization. One of the best or biggest benefits of a startup is that most startup organizations are so simple that the business processes are very well known, and the amount of revenue that each of those generate is clearly known because they're small, and the number of business processes is finite. As you grow as an organization from startup to being a enterprise, then it becomes very unclear where the business processes are being executed and how those revenues are being generated. So the bigger the organization, the more the importance of having a robust business architecture in place. After the stakeholder mapping, it's strategy mapping. So you need to, well, we'll dig into that. This is the two key things we're going to be focusing on today are the value mapping and the strategy mapping and the initiative mapping. And then next one is the initiative mapping. So let's get into that. So as I said, business capability mapping helps you understand what an organization does as a business. What are the different questions can a capability mapping answer? So here are the examples. These are not all the questions, but these are some of the examples. Cost incurred in creating and maintaining capabilities, right? Then how much did we invest on a given capability to date? How much did we invest on it, right? You need to know that. It's very important. Are we investing on capabilities that are strategically important, right? You might invest on a capability, for example, our college has a beautiful library, right? We invested on the library, the capability. It's a beautiful library with a bunch of books and electronic means of getting information to the students. Is that strategically important? Yes. Yes, it is foundationally important, right? Are we investing on the right strategic capabilities? So your capability mapping can help you answer questions like that. Then what are the different supporting capabilities and what is the cost? Supporting capabilities are capabilities that you ought to have. You cannot be operating as an enterprise or an organization without them. Supporting capabilities are, for example, HR. You got to have HR, even though HR is not your main function. You could be a hospital. You still have to have a HR. You could be a hospital, right? And your main goal is to care for the patients. However, if you don't have an accounts receivable system in place to collect the money that should be collected from insurance companies or individuals, then you're not getting any money in. So accounts receivables is even though it's a supporting capability for a hospital, you got to have it. And accounts payable general ledger, for example, as a hospital, you have costs, bills to pay. If you don't have a accounts payable system, then you cannot pay those bills electronically. So you got to have those. Marketing, very important. All the organizations should have a certain amount of marketing built into their systems. There are exceptions, however. Marketing doesn't necessarily mean that you have a marketing department and you're marketing your product by putting big billboards or running ads on TV or newspaper or radio. Marketing could be done. There are many organizations today that do innovative kind of marketing. They market their capabilities by releasing small videos, or they leverage their loyal customers to do the marketing for them. A good example is Tesla, the car company, electric car company. They spend very little amount of money on marketing. If you go search for how they do the marketing, it's very innovative. They spend very little on marketing, but still, a Tesla Model 3 is the best car sold in California by volumes, and it's the best car sold in many parts of Europe. So that's another example where you don't have to be spending money on a particular capability, but you could be innovative in the way that you take that product to the end users. Next one is how do you assess commercial products, whether it has all capabilities needed to be a good fit? Okay, so imagine that you have a certain set of capabilities you're stitching together, you're packaging together to present as a product to the end user. Imagine you're putting together a car. Then you need to ask yourself, as you put this together in this day and age, if you skip on certain items, customers are not going to like it. If you skimp on, if you build a car and you didn't put integration with your phone, seamless integration with phone, right, for something substantial and as critical as Bluetooth, then customers are immediately going to be going away from your product. Bluetooth, you got to have it. You got to have Apple Auto, Android Auto and Apple integration, right? Otherwise, customers are not going to like it. So a capability mapping actually helps you understand whether the commercial product that you're putting together is complete, or is it a good fit for the target audience and for the target market. Next is organization mapping. Where in the organization structure are the capabilities used, right? This helps you understand where are they getting used. Now, some of the questions that organization mapping would help you understand is how strategic objectives and initiatives impact the organizational elements. You might decide today that, let me take an example of a college scenario. If let's say that all students should use electronic means and no books allowed, and you should be reading on laptops and iPads, for example, right? It's just a hypothetical example. Then how is that impacting the organization? Well, you need to make sure that the organization, wherever the students go, has Wi-Fi, has connectivity, has places to charge those devices where they can sit down and keep their devices on a table in a comfortable posture so that they can actually use those devices. right? This is important. And when you think about Wi-Fi, then you're thinking, okay, how do we make sure the students are authenticated, their identity is verified, they're authorized to do only certain functions that they're allowed to do. So it helps answer some of those questions. The next one is how much and to who we can charge back the cost of implementing a capability. Right, this is very important. So if, for example, we decide to have electronic devices only, and we implement throughout the campus, then imagine that, well, let's imagine that it's Google, and if they implemented Wi-Fi throughout wherever they're, all the different geographical locations. At the end of the day, there's not a single bill that pays all the Google Wi-Fi bills, right? They might be providing, let's just ignore that, it's actually provided by somebody else. And then that Wi-Fi provider in Japan is different from the Wi-Fi provider in India. So you have different bills, different bills to pay. How do you know how much is right, how much are they consuming? Your organization mapping would help you understand how do you charge back. After you pay the bill, you need to turn around and say, hey, this Wi-Fi was provided for the benefits of the marketing department and the sales department and the accounts receivables department. You three departments, you have people here working and you use the Wi-Fi. So we're gonna bill it to your three departments. So your organization mapping is gonna help you do that. So let's imagine that we have a huge initiative that we're kicking off in the organization, right? Let's say we are Mahindra, the automotive company, and today we're kicking off a huge initiative that says by 2025 we will no longer be manufacturing internal combustion engine automobiles, ICE automobiles, no more diesel or petroleum automobiles. We're going to be fully electric. And the CEO decides to do that, and board of directors approve it, and they say, okay, we're going to go fully electric. We're going to build only electric vehicles starting 2025. All right. Once the board approves, we need to figure out who do we need to call to announce this? Who do we need to tell first in the organization? Right? Not probably more than likely not the public first. It's probably internal. They need to figure out who to call. So your organization mapping, with the help of your impact that you identify using the organization mapping, is going to help you figure out who are the individuals that you need to call, right? And here's the thing. Um, a well-lubricated, well-designed, and well-understood enterprise architecture enterprises have very good set of individuals you would have to call. That's purely based on the capabilities that they do and the location in which they're in when it comes to organization mapping. Okay. And the next one is, which geographic zone do we need to host a given capability? So this is an interesting one. So let's imagine that um, there's a particular product that's being offered, and the product is, let's say, it's very specific to, I had a religious example in my head, not a good idea. Let's say that the product is very specific to a set of users, a set of a specific set of users who would be using this particular capability. Let's say that it helps surf, right? Or, well, let's say, sea surfing, right? People surf on the ocean waves, and it's a specific thing for the surfers. It helps them understand how the waves are going to be. It helps them understand what temperature of the water, whether there's a storm, whether today, what's the bacteria level in the water? Is it safe to go in? What's the ultraviolet radiation in that particular location? So let's say you launched a capability like that. You need to launch it in the right geographic zone, right? You're not going to launch it in the middle of Nagpur, right? Nagpur has no coastal stretch. There's nobody going to be surfing in Nagpur. You have to pick the right geographic zone to launch that capability. All right. Next is value mapping. So this is very critical. Value mapping can be classified into a set of value streams that generate revenue for the organization. They bring money to the organization. And a value stream consists of value stages. Imagine train, right? From one end to the other end, a train is a value stream. And each compartment is a value stage. And each value stage maps to a business process. Again, our value mapping consists of a set of value streams. Imagine that a value stream is like a train, and each compartment in the train is a value stage, and each value stage maps to a business process. Now, each value stage, there is a particular set of stakeholders who participate in the business process, like the call center example I was providing you a few minutes ago. In that particular example, you have a customer calling in, a customer service representative answering the call and such. Now, what are the different questions that a value mapping can answer? Number one, the CEO of the organization needs to know what are the capabilities that generate revenue, and how much are they generating individually, right? The next question that the value mapping will help the CEO answer is that how changes to business processes impact the organization and the revenue. So if you decide to make some changes to the organization, how are they impacting the organization? How is the revenue impacted with that? Right? If you decide to sunset a business capability, or if you decide to um, uh, remove a particular set of individuals or one individual from the organization, how is it going to impact the organization? How is that going to impact the revenue stream of the organization? Next one is heat map. This is very similar to the previous one. This helps you understand where is the revenue coming from. Where if it's red means you're getting your most income from those revenue streams, and you got to have more investments into those revenue streams to make sure that your breadwinners are the value streams that bring the most revenue to the organization are well funded. And the next bullet point is the same. So you need to understand which value streams generate revenue, and you need to also understand which set of capabilities that you need to understand. And like I was mentioning, if you imagine value stream as a train and the compartment is a value stage, within the value stage, within the business process, the individuals actually use capabilities. Let's revisit the example. A customer calls in, a call center associate answers the phone, and the call center associate asks the question, what's your name? What's the purpose of the phone call? And once he understands the purpose of the phone call, he's going to have to use an order management system. An order management system is a capability, right? So within the business process of order inquiries that's initiated by the customer service representative is actually using the business capability called order management system to look up the customer's order and tell the customer that it's being shipped in the next couple hours, or why is it delayed, right? And then the last one, it's a stretch goal for you to understand this, but I really want you to get an idea on the fact that this happens a lot within organizations. When an organization wants to acquire another organization, it's really important that the bigger organization, not bigger, the acquiring organization understand what it's buying, right? So for it to understand what it's buying, it needs to go in and look at all the capabilities that the other organization has. So be business capabilities, so be their value generating streams, so be their organization mapping. So one of the ways to best understand this is to have value mapping in place so that you can actually understand the revenue generating streams. Are you buying a company that's going to generate revenue? Are you buying a company that's the value streams are not very strong? Maybe the revenue that you're thinking isn't there. Maybe the capabilities that are used by the stakeholders within a business process, maybe they're not as strong. Maybe you need to look at that. So this will help you assess whether to acquire an organization or not. When it comes to acquisitions and mergers, this is one of the activities that happens. Next one is like I was mentioning in the train analogy, a train being a value stream that generates revenue, and individual compartments being value stages, and value stages are mapped to business processes. You got to have all of your business processes mapped. It may not happen on day one, but you have to have the effort in place and the intensity put in so that you eventually have the business processes mapped. What kind of questions would business process mapping answer? Some of the questions, for example, how is strategy impacting business processes in the everyday business? Let's take the phone example, right, where the customer is calling to check on an order. If you do decide to bolster that order management system, and instead of having a human being take the phone call and tell the customer what the status is, let's imagine that you implemented interactive voice response system or an IVR system where it automatically prompts the customer to put in the order number, and after the customer puts in the order, it actually gives the most updated order status to the customer. Right? And if you implement a strategy that basically has an objective that says we need to make the customer's experience self-serving, right? The objective is customer's experience should be self-serving, which means when the customer calls in, they should be able to pick, option one for this, option two for order inquiry, and if they pick order two for, option two for order inquiry, then subsequent steps should um, ask the customer for the order number and give the latest order status back to the customer. So if the strategic objective is to make the customer's experience self-service, then that business process, which is the call center business process, right? How is that impacted? How is the everyday business impacted? How many less call center people do you need? Or maybe you can have the call center people do other call center things, like for example, the end users may have forgotten their password on your website, and they could call in, and now the call center folks have the capability to reset the password and tell them the temporary password, right? You could have more or additional work assigned to the call center individuals because they're no longer having to give the latest status back to the customers on the phone, because the order status is automated. The next question is, how is business architecture enabling business process modeling? Um, now, this is probably a stretch topic for this particular conversation, but let's see. All right. So there are certain principles and guiding principles that individuals follow from a business process management standpoint. They're best practices that we've gained from various different organizations. So if you're following those best practices and implementing and designing business processes, then you can use the business architecture artifacts to do the art or creating or the science of business process modeling better. Now, let's see, so one of the courses that you may have already taken or you're going to take is operations research. It comes from industrial engineering. It comes from a science or a domain that's not really computer science, but however, it's very important for folks to understand, have a diversified set of knowledge when you're venturing into the job market. So it's very critical for individuals to understand what it is. So pay attention to your operations research class, if it's still called the operations research. If not, I don't know what it's called, but however, it deals with the different business processes and helps you understand how to design them optimally. There is a science behind it. There's also a field called process management control systems. Again, the name is called process management control systems. The intent of that is to help individuals put in enough number of controls within a business process to make sure that the business process is monitorable and it has right amount of data points collected for auditing purposes. And again, this comes from, it was initially, I believe, it comes from your oil and natural gas exploration industry. I think they initially implemented process management control systems that include sensors and such that collect vital information to understand how a particular business process is working. All right. Next one is product mapping. You need to understand within the organization which revenue streams are put together that become a product to the end user. Right? It depends on whatever the product that you're offering to the end user. It could be a e-commerce website that you're selling items and goods, right? Or it could be a physical product that you send to the customer. It could be an iPhone or any kind of phone or a watch or a car, you need to know what value streams are enabling the product. So you understand who in the organization are actually participating in the revenue generation process. Some of the questions it'll help you trigger or participate actually. Some of the questions it would help you answer is, how do we identify who to incentivize and motivate to increase profitability? So imagine that train again, that train and the compartments being value stages and the train being revenue streams, value streams. If you know those value streams and where the money is being generated, or the revenue is being generated, if you wanted to motivate those individuals to perform better in a given quarter, for example, then you need to understand who to incentivize and who to motivate. So if you don't know how that value stream is working and who is actually putting in the effort that's making the money, then you cannot incentivize. So if you have a stakeholder mapping, then you can incentivize the right set of people to increase the profitability on a particular value stream. And the next bullet points speak very similar lines. You need to know who triggers and participates in core business capabilities. Let's see. Yeah. So the other aspect is that when you're doing your investment, and the stakeholder is saying, okay, in this order management system capability, Mr. CEO or Mr. The board of directors or chairman, please invest 10 rupees into this because we really need to do this. This is very important to the customers. Like for example, if the stakeholder who owns the order management system is saying we need to implement the interactive voice response system, IVR system, so that the customers can be self-sufficient. Then the CEO, board of directors are thinking, what is the return of investments? ROI stand for return on investment on this 10 rupees. If we put 10 rupees in, how much is it going to save the organization, or maybe it's going to help or make organization make more money. So your stakeholder mapping will help you answer questions like that. Strategy mapping, how is the business strategy translated into IT strategy? So when you have an organization, it's going to have your business organization and your IT organization. And when you have that, you don't want the individuals on the business side create the strategy on their own, and the IT side create the strategy on their own. You need them to participate in unison. You need to make sure that the business strategy is translated into IT strategy. If the business strategy says, we have to implement this interactive voice response system to give the order status to customers, then you have to have a corresponding IT strategy that actually starts working on developing or maybe even buying that IVR system, or maybe you spin off a team of people or put together a team of people to develop the interactive voice response system in-house. Next one is your strategy mapping will help you understand what capabilities are impacted by the strategic objective in the given quarter. If this quarter, in the next 3 months, your goal is to implement the interactive voice response system, then your strategy mapping, along with the rest of the business architecture mapping, would help you understand which capabilities are impacted by this. So the next set of questions are self-explanatory. Let me see. I'm looking at the watch real quick. I think we're pretty close, pretty good on time here. I'm going to skip over the next few. Please read through those. These are very important, but it's a little stretch goal for me to explain those to you at this point. Right? When you implement an initiative in the organization, initiative mapping is going to help you understand which stakeholders are impacted, which capabilities are impacted, and such. All right. So this is a little infographic that I put together a while ago, and I really like looking at it myself to understand what is going on here, right? Business units has capabilities, funds initiatives. Initiative impacts capabilities, like the initiative to implement IVR system will impact your capability, for example, order management system. Initiatives impact your value streams, the revenue generating streams, the trains that generate the money. Capability mapping is broken up into level 1, 2, 3, and 4 sometimes, but we're not here to describe that. But understand that You require information and capabilities enable value stages. Value streams at the bottom. Value streams generate your create your revenue. And next one is stakeholders. Stakeholders actually participate in value stages. They trigger a value stream. Business processes are mapped to your value stages. Next one is product, right? Relies on value streams. So you have to stitch a set of value streams together to make a product and to package it as a value stream. It's packaged value streams are called the product. Now, this helps you. So if the previous slide, these are all the things, right? You took your plate, you walked around the buffet, you picked up all the items that you want. Well, I shouldn't say buffet. The grocery store, you picked up all the ingredients to start working, translating from a business objective to product. This is your shopping list. You got all of these. Then you need to understand how are these put together, which depends on what. So if you follow the business objective up top here, a new objective, a strategic objective, impacts capabilities, right? And it's achieved by implementing an initiative. The initiative will impact capabilities. And the initiative will impact value streams. As you can see here, stakeholders are participating in value streams, and they trigger and they participate in value streams. This is from left to right. This is the train I was referring to. A value stream has value stages. And each value stage, right, is enabled by capabilities here, level 1, 2, 3, 4. And each capability, if you look here, right, is funded by a business unit. I'm sorry, has capabilities. Each business unit has capabilities. And usually initiatives are funded by a business unit. Okay, and if you stitch together a set of value streams like this, then you get a product. Each capability needs information, requires information. So this diagram is what I want you to spend a little bit of time understanding how a strategic objective within an organization is translated into a product. What are the key elements of it, right? There's a business unit that funds the initiative. There are stakeholders that participate, trigger and participate in the value stages of a value stream. Value stages are enabled by capabilities. Capabilities require information. All right, I'll leave the slide there and pause for any questions.
Well, students, if you're having any doubts, just raise your hands at once, then I'll unmute you. Kishore sir, I think you can go for that, sir.
Okay, all right. So what I want to tell you what I want to really tell you is that the information that I shared today is the kind of information, if you master these skills, if you learn these skills, and if you master these skills, along with your technology capabilities, would put you on path. Once you master these skills, the list of skills that I just mentioned will put you on path to becoming either a CTO or a CIO of an organization, Chief Technology Officer or Chief Information Officer. So please watch the video one more time and try to learn the individual pieces of the puzzle, by Googling or by clicking on the resources that I put together. So the previous 2 sessions on enterprise architecture and today's session on how do you translate business objective to a revenue generating value stream or product. If you understand this in and out, and if you're able to practice this in your life from the day one that you start your job or your own company or your own organization, you're well on your way to becoming a CTO or a CIO of an organization. I am super excited to have spent time with you during the last few weeks. And thank you to my friend Vishnu for giving me this opportunity to be with you guys and share all this information with you. I'm super excited how this information is going to help you and help you blossom your career into CTOs and CIOs of the future. Don't forget, some of the best organizations in the world are run by some of the best CTOs and CIOs, and there are a lot of Indian CTOs and CIOs running organizations today. So please read through these, understand these, and put them to good use. You are well on your way becoming a CTO or a CIO someplace. Thank you very much, and look forward to the topic tomorrow. Tomorrow is more personal in nature. It's more my journey on what and how I was able to go from here to India and back during the month of March. And it'll be largely interactive. So Hari sir, I really want tomorrow's session to be interactive. I want to make sure that everybody's got their microphones turned on and they're able to ask questions from the get-go. It's a conversation. It's not a lecture. It's more a discussion. It's more whatever the students want to ask me about. So it's more personal than the last few sessions have been.
Sure, sir. I'll convey the same message to the students once again.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Sorry, I'm 2 minutes over the class here. Appreciate your time. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, sir. Please. Thank you, students. So do join tomorrow, 6 p.m. sharp. So tomorrow will be an interaction session with Jai Kishore, sir. So for whatever the sessions for the past 3 weeks you have listened, make a note of them and go through all the slides at once. Then you will get some idea. If any queries, you can post to sir tomorrow. I thank each and everyone. You can leave today. Thank you all. Have a great evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.